Welcome to this week's episode of Success in Women. I'm Linda.
I'm Andrea.
And because Father's Day is in a couple of days, we wanted to honor our fathers and the influence that they have on our success. But before we get started, Andrea's got her tip of the week.
Hi, ladies. So, when you're in your car, and especially here in Canada, and you drive up to get a coffee, and you're looking for change, especially the loonies and the toonies, a lot of times we just throw them in the cup holder, or we throw them in the little groove that they have there. Or you're searching in your pockets, in your purse. Well, I saw this great idea where, you know how now they sell the gum in those large flip containers, plastic containers, and they fit perfectly in the cup holders.
Wow.
So once it's empty, just throw all your change in there and it's readily available.
Well, and then you can shake it out.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And it gets to repurpose, something.
Repurpose, exactly. And I mean, you can have a change cup, you have one in your room or when pizza guy comes, you've got some loonies and toonies to tip. I thought it was a great idea.
That is a really good one. Mm-hmm. I don't actually chew gum anymore, but I know people who do, and I'm going to have to get myself one of their empties.
Exactly. Or just buy the container, give the gum put it in a baggie and give the gum to somebody.
That's true. That's worthwhile as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm really anxious and happy that we're going to be talking about fathers and the influence because, ladies, it's always been when you hear about a successful man, they always say it's because there's a good woman right behind. Well, how about all the successful women? Whether, you're working or I'll say somebody that's a domestic goddess like you, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, or that balance. The fact is, our fathers play a huge role in our success and the kind of guy that we might choose for ourselves in our life.
And that's what they always say. If you have daughters, be careful how you treat your wife because they're always looking. And if you treat your wife with respect, your mother with respect, and you love them and you do for the family, they'll look for that in a husband. But if you're always putting people down or arguing with your wife or not honoring your mother, they'll accept that as normal behavior.
Yes.
And that's what they'll accept in a husband. It's so important. And fathers really do play a big role, whether they think they do or not.
Well, in my case, because my father, and I always say this, my father was ahead of his time. He passed away in 1974, but he could have written a book on parenting because he was a hands-on father way before it was common and normal to be. But he also was very encouraging. So whatever we wanted, because there were 3 girls in our family and 4 boys. Now, my youngest sister didn't really get the influence because she was only 4 when he passed away. But the fact is that my father didn't believe in gender roles. And so he always encouraged us that we could be or do anything that we set our mind to. And so we weren't put into a traditional role of, you're going to be whatever the female roles were back then. And a lot of them were like nurses, teachers, things of that nature, secretaries. No, I mean, my father was like, you can be the boss. You can do whatever a man could do. You could go into those roles. And I know that I'm in a male-dominated industry that still today is, I'll say, probably 70% men versus the women.
Wow.
And I've been in this industry for, 35 years.
Right.
And so when you look at that, you think...
And very successful, I might add.
Thank you. But the thing is, because of my father's influence, I never felt threatened to be going into, I'll say, a male-dominated industry because my father said I could do whatever I wanted to.
And do you think that your sister felt the same way?
Which one? My older one?
Yeah.
I would say yes, but she chose an industry which, again, was male-dominated as well. So she didn't go for the traditional roles, I'll say, that females would have way back then. And she's been retired for a number of years now, like more than 10 years. And so her industry was male dominated as well. I'm not sure if it's because of my father or because, see, the household we grew up in, everything was normal, like in the sense that we never thought about female roles. And she went out and got a job, shift work, mind you, where, you know, a lot of females didn't do that because
back in the day,
back in that day, you didn't, because you had to have that 9 to 5 job.
Unless you were a nurse.
Well, that's true. That's true. There were a few
Exceptions,
exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, most women worked the 9 to 5 jobs so they could be home to, I'll say, cook for their families and do all the other things. And Nancy went into, you know, definitely a non-traditional role. But I think because my father made everything normal in the sense of you just did whatever it is that you wanted to do. So when she was looking for a job, she just applied for jobs that she thought she might be interested in, got something, and absolutely loved it for her whole entire career. So she was able to retire from that.
That's good,
And even
because sometimes one child might get more out of something than another, you know, like especially if you have a close relationship with your father, you know, not all girls get along with their dads.
But I was daddy's girl.
Yes, you were.
Up until my younger sister was born. She displaced me from that daddy's girl role because I was the baby girl. And that was a nice.
Came along.
But you know, because she was as cute as a button, I didn't hold it against her. But there was a difference. There really was a difference. So, and I know parents aren't supposed to play favorites, but you know, when you're daddy's baby girl, you know, and I sucked up to that kind of thing. So I played the role very well.
Good for you.
Yeah. But I do, when I look back, have to give my dad so much credit for all the things that he encouraged without realizing that he was doing something that wasn't the norm.
Right.
And I know in your household, you were also daddy's girl, and she was the oldest.
Yeah, I was the
which
oldest.
Which was unusual.
But here's the thing. This was not my biological father. That changes everything. When a man can take in a woman, especially in the 50s, with a child and treat that child like their own, which he did, that's a man. And I have to give him real credit for that. And they also went on to have 5 more children. And
but he
never treated me any different. Actually,
that's right.
They always said that I was favored.
Yeah.
You know, and he always did treat me so wonderful, and I was always so grateful for that. But in the same thing, like we were 4 girls, 2 boys, and there was no okay, girls get up and do the dishes, boys go out and clean the yard. No, we didn't have any of that either. It was if the job needed to be done, do it, you know, and my father was great for that also. And he was a great role model for us as a husband and a father, because he treated my mother with so much love and respect when she didn't deserve it a lot of the times, you know, and he was very helpful to us, encouraging to us. I mean, you know, back then they worked in the mines. They worked shift work. It was not easy for them. And then the mine went on strike so often, and my dad would have to go search for work, and he went right away. And
my dad too.
You know, they went down south. They came to our end here to find work and send the money home. They were incredible role models for us. And I'm not saying all of them were, because
they certainly weren't.
I had a few friends that the fathers were not great role models, you know. And so we were very blessed.
Kids, that we were blessed, and we didn't know any different really until much later, in the sense of how good our fathers were and the influence that they had on us.
Right.
You know, especially, you know, you picking a husband and me having this career, it had a lot to do with the fact that we had these amazing fathers. And I don't know if enough fathers get credit for the role that they play in their children's success.
In the success and the decisions they make later on in life. Exactly.
And, you know, I guess sometimes when I'll say our mothers pick the wrong men. Sometimes that's, and when you have a father figure though that you can look up to in that sense, and like you said, that wasn't your biological father, and yet he played the whole role of the father.
Absolutely.
That you couldn't have picked a better dad.
No, I couldn't have. Yeah, and that's the thing. They said, they say anybody can be a father, but only certain people can be a dad.
Well, and that's the thing, because, you know, a lot of them, as Dr. Laura, I always mention her, but Dr. Laura says some people are just sperm donors. So you can't expect them to really have or be that father figure. They're not. And I've been listening recently to an audio book on Mel Brooks. And his father passed away when he was 2. So he was the baby of the family. But his role model happened to be his older brother, who felt it was his role now that dad was gone to actually parent his 2-year-old brother.
Wow.
And he said he did such an amazing job. And so your dad doesn't have to be
the biological
sperm donor, because not all sperm donors are fathers.
Exactly. And as we said, even on our Mother's Day message, there's father figures in all areas. It's not just biological. It could be an uncle.
Yes.
You know, like you say, an older brother, a friend that, you know, because some, especially nowadays with so many single family homes, you know, they have the boys and girls clubs. They have different places where somebody will take on that role and click with somebody.
Well, you know, in my husband and I weren't able to have children, but when my sister left her husband and she left him and she had a baby, so she all of a sudden now is a single mom. And of course, because she moved from one province to another, she came and she lived with my husband and I, you know, for a while till she got established. And the thing was, my husband took on the role of being that, I'm going to say parent, because my sister's ex-husband really was not in the picture, and by choice. I get that there was a distance, but you know, there were phones, and eventually there were computers where you could do Zoom calls and stuff, but he never had the interest. I think even though he encouraged my sister to get pregnant when they got married right away, he really wasn't ready to be a parent. And when they had the child, he wasn't really the father figure. He was, in all intents and purposes, a sperm donor.
Right.
So my husband actually was the closest thing that my nephew had to having a father. And to this day, really, I know that he's an adult now. The fact is, they're close, and my ex-husband was there right through that whole time, you know, of his growing up. And he always looked at, you know, my nephew as, I'll say, like our son. And he is my godchild. And I've always thought of him as my son as well, because, you know, we were there for his whole entire life. But my husband, not being his father, was like a father to him.
Which is great.
Yeah. And so you can look around. It doesn't have to be. But all of those men who have picked up the slack for their own children or the children that don't necessarily belong to them by blood,
that's right,
but have still been there as a father figure. And we just wanted to make sure we honor those men.
Right.
And
you know, it's funny, I see on Facebook a lot, and these fathers nowadays dressing up and doing dance recitals with their little girls. It is the most adorable thing. And believe you me, it makes a difference. It really does make a difference. And those children will always remember, you know, the father being with them and showing up for them. And I remember with my girls, when we went to all the dance recitals, I was there constantly. And it was always, is dad coming to the recital? Is dad going to be there? And you could see them kind of looking for him in the audience, you know, and they were so happy when he was there. And he'd always say, oh, do I have to go? I go, yes, you have to go. Like, and it was funny because on the weekend I was at my daughter. I still go to my daughter, even though she's the dance teacher now, I still go to her recital every year. And in front of me was a couple, and the husband and the wife, and I could tell that their child was probably very young. And he was looking everywhere but at the stage, like it just wasn't his thing. But I thought, good for you. You came and you sat through the whole performance, and it was like 2.5 hours long. And I thought, don't worry, your daughter will appreciate that. So be there for them. Show up even though you don't want to. You know, like how many T-ball games I sat through, or we sat through, like nothing's more boring than T-ball when they're like 4 or 5 years old. But you got to show up, because that gives them self-esteem, that they know
that's important.
They matter,
Yes.
you know, and don't ever underestimate the role of a father, and of just being there and showing up for the important things in their lives. Doesn't matter that they're not important to you. It's important to them.
It's interesting, and I quote movies a lot too, but I like some of the old classics. And I remember seeing same time next year with Alan Alda and Ellen Bernstein, I think, something like that. Anyway, the thing is, in that, she was telling the story about her husband, and the fact was, she had another child, I'll say big age difference, just like in my family. But she said one time she came home and her husband was on the floor with these little girls. I think they were like 5 or 6, and it was some kind of like thing that where he had like an Indian band on and stuff, but they were playing something. And there were about 5 or 6 of these little girls all around. And she goes, there's my big husband, and he's sitting there, you know, in the middle. She goes, she felt
her heart.
It does. That's what she said. It was overwhelming, the love that, because of what he did for this child, you know. And when you think about it, how many fathers would do something like that, right? Now nowadays, they do.
Yes, now they're more involved, some of them, and then some are like
but
totally
when we were growing up, you know, the baby boomer generation, it wasn't common.
The thing. Yeah, I mean, the fathers used to drop their pregnant wives at the hospital and say, call me when it's over. Now, you know, the husbands are right in there, you know, so it's a lot of change, that's for sure. And another thing, I have some experience with this, is fathers should teach their daughters different skills, you know, like changing a flat tire, maybe even gardening. One of my girlfriends, or one of my friends, the daughter wasn't really great at school. Like, she wasn't into it. And her father was an electrician. And she asked her father when she was 15 if she could come on the job and learn. Now, another man might have said, forget it, you're a woman. No,
that's right.
No, we don't want women on the job site, construction site. But he took her. Do you know, she excelled. She got her license, one of the youngest women to ever get it. And then she became a master electrician.
Wow, that is impressive.
Incredible. And when she did get all those degrees, I said to him, you have to throw a party for her. Like, we all want to honor her, because she was, I can't remember what it was, the first woman to get her master's or something like this. So we did. He threw a party for her, and we honored her. And she's my husband's #1 electrician for all job sites. Wow. He doesn't call anybody but her. She is a genius when it comes to that. So that's the
influence of a father.
Exactly.
And you know what? Because not all kids are meant to do the traditional role of going through school all the way. But when they show signs of interest and trades, that's where a father's influence can make all the difference.
All the difference. As long as they say, like, don't say, oh, that's not for girls or that's not for women. Who cares?
Yeah.
If that's what you're good at, if that's what your passion is, let them do it. Show them, teach them.
Yes.
You know, maybe just changing a tire, they might become a mechanic.
Absolutely.
So you have to see where their passions are and encourage
Well,
them.
what's interesting, Andrea, also is that your niece is a roofer.
Yes.
With her son, who's your great nephew.
Yes.
And they
She
do roofing
loves-
together, and she loves it.
She loves roofing,
Yeah.
and you don't see too many women up there on the roof.
Absolutely not. And I'm like, I was so impressed. I got to meet her and her son, but
Yeah.
that's what they do and that's what they love. But think about that kind of influence that she had to have gotten, because her mom, which is your sister, is not a roofer.
No, and this did not come from her father or her stepfather.
Oh.
It came from a man that she met, and they ended up together, and he was into roofing, and he took her to the job. She said, I want to try that, and good on him that he took her and was willing to teach her, and she absolutely loves it.
I just love hearing those success stories. And I recently was talking to my sister that she met a lady in the neighborhood that she lives in, and this lady, just in a conversation in a parking lot at the grocery store, was talking to my sister, and I don't know why it all came about, except that my sister was driving her husband's truck, and my sister's this beautiful blonde, bombshell, and so the lady went up to her because she couldn't believe that my sister, this nice, good-looking blonde, was going into a truck because it was so untraditional.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she starts telling her about the fact that she can do everything, and she has, and she's lost her husband recently. And I don't know if it was her husband that taught her, but it was a man, or her father, but she can roof. She does electricity. She does plumbing. She said, basically, I can do everything.
Wow.
She goes, I don't go up on the roof anymore because she's now getting older. And good that she can recognize that you can easily lose your balance.
Yes.
But the fact that, I'll say, some men in her life, helped her to find the passion that she was, because she enjoys all of that stuff.
Right. And even if you're fixing something in the house, if the daughter shows interest, show them, let them help. Just say, this is men's job or
That's right.
whatever.
That's the thing I've always hated, and I never had to really listen to it in the home, but I have heard in other areas where, men try to discourage women from certain things that we find as women that we're very talented in.
Oh, very.
And so that's why we want to
look at the difference in the world now from when we were growing up. Women are everywhere.
Yeah.
And excelling. And
True.
that makes us very proud.
But a lot of it, that's why we have to honor those men that actually encouraged women to show that side of them.
Help them
and
in
be
the
able
corporate world and everywhere.
And actually, that's the other thing. The support that some men have given women, just when you go into that environment that's traditionally always men, and they actually don't push you out, but actually help to grow you in that particular field.
Yes.
I love that. And I really think that this day is a great day to honor, our fathers, uncles, brothers, co-workers, whatever these men, the ones that are out there.
Some mentorship and help women succeed.
So if there's a man in your life that you can put up there and have it special for them, why not?
Why not?
It's really good. And especially if they're the ones that help, I'll say, give you that self-esteem to be out there and confident in the world.
Right.
Wasn't an easy thing.
No.
So if you did like the episode, please
like,
share,
and subscribe.
We hope that you give us a thumbs up so we can continue doing this. I'm Linda.
I'm Andrea.
Until next week.
Bye, ladies.